How's everybody doing today? Good? All right. So I am with Nature's Educators, and we are a nonprofit organization licensed by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service to care for non-releasable birds of prey and other animals. So I'm going to share with you guys 3 different birds of prey, and all 3 of these species are species of birds that we can see right here in this area. So if you guys are going out for a walk, these are some of the animals you want to be keeping an eye out for. So I'm going to bring out our first one, and she's going to be a little small. So this is the one you probably will have the hardest time to find in the wild. Alrighty. Hold her up to the camera so you guys can kind of get a good view of her. She's not going to turn her head at the moment. There she goes. So you can kind of see her face. So this is called an eastern screech owl. So we have these guys here in the Highlands Ranch area and up through northern Colorado. Now you can see she is a pretty small little owl, but she is not a baby. So a lot of people see her and they think, oh, is this a baby owl? But she is full grown, so screech owls only get to be just this little tiny, handful sized of an owl. So because they're small, these guys are hunting smaller critters. So you can think of things like mice, small rats, little reptiles, frogs, toads, small snakes, little birds sometimes. The one thing that they seem to be really great at hunting is actually bats. So these guys come out right at dawn and dusk, and that's the exact same time that bats are coming in and out of their caves or wherever they happen to be spending the day. So these screech owls wait for the bats to get active, and that's when these guys are going to go out and hunt some bats as well. But like most owls, these guys will hunt anything they think they can catch. So they're what we call an opportunistic predator. And they'll eat things as small as a bug. Now, if she get her to look at the camera, you guys might notice there's something not quite right with this bird. And it's in her eye that's not facing, well, or not closest to the camera, unfortunately. But what happened to her is she was hit by a car. So she is actually blind in her eye over on her right side. So the eye is there. However, the pupil is permanently dilated. So unfortunately, she cannot see. And an owl who cannot see would not survive in the wild. So that's why we'll keep her for the rest of her life. We'll take care of her, make sure she has food, make sure she's has a safe place to live. She is safe from things like weather or predators. So in the wild, a screech owl like this at the most would live to be about 5 years. That's because it's really hard to find food, but also on an owl this size, they have to be on the watch out for larger birds of prey. So pretty much any other bird of prey out there will attempt to eat a screech owl. So it's a pretty dangerous world for them, but she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. So a screech owl in captivity, like our screech owl here, she might live to be about 10 years. And right now we believe that she is 5 years old. So if she were in the wild, this would be a very, very old screech owl. But she's about in the middle of her life right now. Now, owls have some pretty cool adaptations that help them hunt. So one, probably the most obvious, is if you look at her feathers. And then if you imagine this bird on tree bark, she'd be pretty hard to see. So these owls rely on what's called cryptic camouflage. Got excited there. So they use cryptic camouflage, which is what helps them blend into trees. These guys nest in tree cavities, and when they're sitting in that hole in the tree, they're almost impossible to see because they blend in so well. So one of the other things that they have, so that's how they stay hidden while sitting still on a tree. But even on the move, owls are pretty stealthy creatures. So when owls flap their wings, they don't make any sound. So they have silent flight. And this means that they can sneak up on any prey that they're hunting. They also have something really cool in their ears. And so a lot of people, when they look at it, she's got these little ear tufts down right now, but so she's got these little tufts of feathers on the top of her head. So a lot of people, when she has those up, people think those are her ears. Her ears are actually on the side of her head, and one is lower than the other. So she actually has one ear down here and the other ear up here. So because their ears are in different places, these owls are able to do something called triangulation. That means if they hear something, they can pinpoint exactly where that sound is coming from. And they can actually hear a mouse's heartbeat under a foot of snow. So owls hunt almost entirely with their ears. They have amazing eyesight as well. So these guys can see at night or when there's very, very low light. So when we're totally blind, these guys are actually able to see pretty much like we can at daytime. And this is for a couple of reasons. So one, their eyes are huge. So it's not actually an eyeball. It's shaped more like a light bulb. So it's really big in the front and it gets really long and then it goes all the way to the back of her skull. And having this large eye allows for what are called a lot of rod cells. And rod cells are special cells in the eye, and those pick up light. So humans have those as well, but we don't have as many. This means that we don't see at night very well, but our trade-off is that we have a lot of what are called cone cells that pick up color. So we actually see a lot more colors than most mammals, whereas owls, they can see at night, but they actually don't see many colors or possibly none at all. It's really hard to tell what kind of colors an owl can see. It's possible they could see a little bit of purple, but we don't think that there are, they can see many colors. All right, so she is one of our smaller owls here. More likely what you're going to see here in Colorado, especially in this area, will be a great horned owl. And that looks like this, but much, much bigger. And those are also the ones you're going to hear more often because they're going to be the ones hooting. So a lot of people will think that all owls hoot, but actually here in Colorado, the great horned is the only one who will hoot. A lot of our other owls, like our screech owl here, they can bark, they can whinny, they can make all kinds of other little sounds, but they don't actually hoot. So when you're hearing that hoot, you're hearing a great horned owl. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put Morpheus away so I have can bring out our next bird. She'll be a little bigger. So this one, as you can see, much, much larger. This is a peregrine falcon. This is the largest species of falcon that we have here in Colorado. And they're one of the fastest animals as well. So a peregrine falcon's record speed was 275 miles an hour. So peregrine falcons, like most falcons, are incredibly high-speed predators of other birds. So these guys are actually up in the air, flying very, very quickly to hunt other flying critters. So some falcons will hunt bats. Most are going after birds. So the peregrine falcon's nickname is the duck hawk. No, they are not a hawk. It's just showing you some wing speed there. But they are able to hunt prey up to the size of ducks. So you guys might notice it looks like she's shaking a little bit. So falcons will sometimes do that, not because they're nervous or because they're cold, but because they're excited. And you can kind of imagine if you were an animal who is used to flying very, very quickly, you may not want to stand still for very long. So these guys have just a ton of energy and they have to get it out somehow. So they'll shake their wings and flap a lot. And actually when she flaps, you can probably see why we have her. Because she is actually missing part of her wing over here. We have no idea what happened to this bird. She was brought to a rehab center, which is a hospital for wild animals, and that wing was already missing. So definitely kind of a mystery, but obviously she can't fly, so we take care of her, make sure, just like our owl, make sure she's safe and has food. And she's been with us for about 6 years now. So in the wild, a peregrine falcon typically will live 7 to 10 years, maybe up to 12 if they get really, really lucky. But just like with that screech owl, a peregrine in captivity will have a much longer lifespan in captivity. So her captive lifespan would be about 25 years. All right. So I did mention that you do have these here in Colorado. The best places here in Colorado to see one of these guys will be kind of along the hogback, so along kind of the western part of the Denver area. They have these guys. They also have them down in Castle Rock. And if you guys think about what those two areas have in common, think of those rocks and the cliff-like areas. So peregrine falcons love cliffs. And they nest on cliffs because cliffs are a pretty safe place to lay eggs. So the only other animals that can get up to a cliff are going to be other birds. And most birds aren't going to tangle with a peregrine falcon because this falcon is faster than pretty much all of them. And now what is unusual about peregrines is if they like cliffs so much, it's actually where you find the most peregrine falcons in the world, which is New York City. So that is probably the best place in the entire world to go see peregrine falcons. And that's because skyscrapers kind of work like cliffs. It's high up in the sky. Most predators are not going to be able to get up there. And the other thing that New York City helps the peregrine is plenty of food. So peregrine falcons are one of the best hunters of pigeons. So with all those pigeons in New York City, peregrine falcons there have tons of food available to them. So pigeons are surprisingly hard to hunt, and that's because they are extremely fast birds. So most people look at pigeons and don't think of them as being a fast bird or even a particularly smart bird. But pigeons have some really cool defenses. So when a pigeon flaps their wings, they'll actually slap their wings together over their backs. And this makes a loud clapping sound. This actually scares predators because they weren't expecting that pigeon to be making such a loud sound. And once the pigeons get going, they can hit speeds of about 90 miles an hour. So that's going to be like in level flight, so kind of coming straight across with the ground. In level flight, this peregrine falcon could hit maybe 65 miles an hour. So in a straight out race, a pigeon is actually faster than a peregrine falcon. But you guys may remember I said, well, their record speed is 275 miles an hour. And that's kind of where the peregrine falcon's trick is. So in order to hunt things like pigeons or even ducks, what these guys will do is they fly up really high in the sky. They'll pick out what prey they are going to be taking out, and then they dive. So they come straight down in a dive, and they will actually, that's when they're hitting their speeds of 200 or even more miles per hour. So they're using that speed. And what's really unusual about the peregrine falcon is because they are so fast, they don't use their talons or their beaks to kill their prey like most other raptors. Instead, peregrine falcons will ball their feet up. They're going to make a little fist with their feet, and they simply just hit the other bird. And usually that will kill their prey for them. Now, most falcons, instead of using speed, will actually use these long skinny toes. Let's see if we can get those long skinny toes so you guys can see just how long they are. No, don't turn on the computer. That was not a perch. All right. So you can kind of see how those toes are really, really long and skinny. So most falcons are going to use those long skinny toes to reach through the feathers of another bird. They're going to hold on to it, and then they use their beak to actually kill their prey. So falcons have what is called a tomial tooth. It's not an actual tooth, it's just a notch in their beak. And that notch fits right in between the vertebrae of another bird. So they're able to actually break the neck in one bite. So when falcons make their kills, it's very, very quick. So she's got a couple of adaptations for speed. So our owl, if you remember, had those adaptations to be hidden. So they had that camouflage, they had silent flight. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but when she flaps her wings, she is making quite a bit of sound. So falcons don't, when they're on the move, you can hear them. But they're coming so fast, it doesn't matter if their prey hears them because they can't react fast enough to get out of the way. So instead of having super soft feathers that absorb sound like owls, these guys have stiff feathers. So you can kind of think of an owl feather would be more like a cotton ball. Her feathers are more like cardboard. So they're really, really stiff. And this means that when she's flying super fast, her feathers won't get destroyed by that high wind speed. So falcons have to have all kinds of adaptations to help with high wind. So they have those thick feathers. They also have a bone that sticks out of their nose. This is called a baffle, and it's like a spiral shape. So as the wind hits that bone, it slows the air down and it warms it up. So when the air gets into the bird's lungs, they can breathe, and it's not going to be super cold air. And their other adaptation that'll help them with speed is in their, well, not necessarily speed, but helps them with hunting, is their face. So falcons, like most raptors, are coming out during the day, so they have to deal with the sun. Some raptors, like hawks and eagles, they have what's called a supraorbital ridge, which is basically a ridge extending over their eyebrow. Makes them look kind of angry, but it works just like a hat. So those birds who are looking down at the ground can still see. But falcons don't usually look at the ground to find food. They could be looking any direction. They could be looking up, down, left, right, and they don't know where the sun's going to be at any particular time. So having a hat doesn't help a falcon. Instead, you might notice she's got pretty dark cheeks. So all falcons have some kind of either a dark line on their cheek or just all the way, just completely dark like our peregrine here. Very excited. Yeah, you want to see adjust something? There you go. So falcons will have those are called malar stripes on the falcon. And if you think about football players or baseball players, they also put the eye black on them, and that works to help absorb sunlight. And the sunlight won't bounce into their eyes, So they can actually see pretty well even in really sunny conditions. So those are some of one other adaptation, which is actually a good way to identify falcons in the wild. Is you can, on her good wing, you can see just how long and skinny that wing is. So all falcons have really long, skinny wings, and when they fly, they flap very quickly. So a lot of other raptors, like hawks and eagles, soar. So they have really big wings, and what they're going to be doing is moving slowly, letting kind of a wind carry them. Falcons are going to be flapping. They tend to turn a little quicker. You won't just see one just kind of floating with their wings out. So their wings aren't built for that. All right. I'll go ahead and put our peregrine away. Her name is Penny. All right, and then our last bird that I have for you guys today is the largest one I have to share with you. Hey, buddy. So this bird is a turkey vulture. So we can tell she's a vulture because she has no feathers on her head. And that's typical for most vultures. And that helps them with a couple of things. One, it helps with their diet. These guys are sticking their head inside of pretty gross stuff. So these guys are scavengers, eating all kinds of leftovers from other predators or things like roadkill. And they like to stick their head right in the middle of a carcass, which would get their feathers really dirty if they had feathers on their head. So by not having feathers, they keep their heads very clean. The other thing it helps them do is stay cool. So not having feathers on your head is just like not wearing a hat in winter. It allows heat to escape. And turkey vultures live in pretty warm environments. So here in Colorado, these guys migrate. So this is the time of year they're actually migrating now. So especially in the evening, you'll tend to see large groups of turkey vultures flying south. And turkey vultures have one of the longest migrations of any raptor. So some have been known to go from southern Canada all the way down to the very southern part of South America. So they're going pretty far to make sure they're in a warm environment where there's always going to be plenty of food. See if we can get a close-up on her face. There we go. Oh, now she's looking up. I want you guys to be able to see her nose. There we go. You guys see how you can see right through her nose? And it's huge. So turkey vultures have a huge nostril, and that's because these birds are using their sense of smell to find prey, or not necessarily prey, but food. So they're actually, and they don't hunt, and they really don't have the ability to hunt. Instead, they're using that's looking for that scent, finding the dead whatever is out there, and they can find that from about a mile away. So they have an amazing sense of smell. And anything dead, these guys will eat. So anything from mice and fish up to, bears, moose, elk. They're not very picky eaters. Now, she actually kind of is, and that's because she's been in captivity for most of her life. And you can kind of see on this side of her body, her wing is a little drooped. So kind of like our owl, she was hit by a car. And unfortunately, she broke her wing and it didn't heal properly. So she cannot fly well enough to survive in the wild. She's also blind on her right side. So she can't see well enough either. See if we can get her to show off her wings for us. Her full wingspan won't fit in the frame, but You can kind of get an idea just how big those are. Now she'll put one out for us, kind of. Turkey vultures can be pretty lazy birds, but these guys have a huge wingspan. And as I mentioned, that falcon has this really the smaller wings and they flap. These guys have those big soaring type wings. So they're actually using air currents that naturally occur to help them fly. This actually means that when a turkey vulture is flying, they're using very little energy. And they can actually get up in the sky and they can go for hours at a time without ever flapping once, assuming that conditions in the sky are good. And that's actually how when they migrate, these guys are relying on hot air currents, so the hot air rises, and that hot air helps carry the vultures south to South America. So without those currents, these guys probably wouldn't be able to migrate that far, or it'd be a lot more difficult for them. They'd have to use a lot more energy than what they actually do use, which is good because when you get tons of vultures migrating together, they'll actually pick clean pretty much everything along their way. So when these guys get down into Central America, they can get into flocks up to about 1 million. So you'd have 1 million vultures all flying together at once. So she is cleaning her feathers. So vultures actually like to stay clean, which is a surprising fact. Most people kind of think of them as very dirty birds because of their diet. But it's odd, but they are very clean. So what they'll do is sometimes in the sun, they spread their wings out wide and they stand in the hot sun, and that sun actually bakes bacteria off their feathers. So it helps keep them nice and clean. And what's really cool about vultures is their poop, because their poop is actually clean. So these guys are out there eating all kinds of gross stuff, some of it a little rotten, and there's bacteria and things in that food that would actually kill most other animals. So the vulture strategy is to actually have stomach acid that kills the bacteria first. So nothing survives the inside of the vulture's stomach, and that means that when they poop, there's no bacteria left. So these guys actually do not spread any kind of disease with their waste. And their poop is actually so clean, they can clean their feet with it. Let's see if we can get her. Her feet are actually pretty clean right now. Looks like she's taken a bath recently. But normally a vulture's feet are about the same color as their head. You can see a little bit of white in there. And that's because she does go to the bathroom on her feet to help clean them, but also to help cool her off. So vultures will go to the bathroom on their feet, and as that wastewater evaporates, it helps cool off the entire bird. So pretty smart for these guys. They're actually not wasting water like other birds will do to cool off. All right. That's about all I have for you guys today.